And another good morning to everyone who wants to join in. And for this one, I just got to turn off some sounds here that I forgot to do before. But yeah, today is, is another day in the life of making choices and deciding what to do with our life. And so it's my great pleasure to not perhaps introduce you to, but to say to have you here today, Sten. Thanks for being here. One of the things Sten always does this to me. I mean, almost like embarrassing flattery whenever he introduces me. But Sten is just one of those brains that puts my brain on high alert. Whenever he has something to say, I know I need to listen, because it's gonna be interesting, and it's gonna be thought provoking, and it will keep my mind occupied and preoccupied for some time. And so when he reached out, when we had our talk last week about Pivot Pro, and we talked about, he mentioned that he had a topic he wanted to discuss, and I think that it's it's an interesting rabbit hole to dig into. And it was like, what's the alternative to X? Could you unbox this topic a little bit for us, Stian? Maybe
Yes.
just say a few words about yourself if someone here does not know you.
So I'm the co-founder of IH Nordic back in the days, really specializing a lot in the analytics side of things. Or that has been my entry into things. Lately, I've been moving from talking about data to trying to take the step, saying, why do anybody do analytics? And in reality, the focus should actually be on the decision and not on the data. So with diminishing data, we need to focus more on what we want from the data and not on the data itself. So that's kind of the big fly-in.
Yeah.
But in relation to this, and in relation to all these conversations that's been about Google Analytics, maybe, or well, some people say it's not compliant, but all that's a session for itself. But people stepping up as an alternative to Google Analytics, people stepping up calling them alternative to anything. I really started thinking about saying, when is anything actually an alternative to anything else? So what does it require to be an alternative? Because it's so easy to say, I'm an alternative to this or that, or we're an alternative to this or that, but we saw some situations, and this was kind of my waking situation, right? Company going out saying, yeah, we're an alternative to Google Analytics, and then I had a client saying, yeah, we're considering this, but then having to say, well, first thing, you're an e-commerce company, and this tool does not have e-commerce tracking.
Yeah.
How the hell can it be an alternative for you guys? And they were like, oh, well,
That's it.
yeah, it doesn't have that. Okay, cool. Then and then it
Yeah.
died there. So what? And then we started talking about the dimension around this. So saying, how do you define if how do you make the decision?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, from my point of view, this is something where I was talking to another friend the other day, and he was talking, because one of my entry points to this topic has a lot to do with like when, why, and where do we use analytics to do whatever it is that we want to do. And sometimes I feel that people get stuck in not the insights and then do act on those insights, but rather get stuck on an idea, like a creative idea, something that they want to do, and then they do that instead. So from my point of view, it's about, when we make choices, making choices based on either, as my friend, like based on archetypes, like trying to find things that we know that people will relate to, or it's based on needs, like how can I satisfy someone's need. And something that he brought to my attention in that respect was that one of the first stages of growth is getting partnerships to work, like partnerships for this distribution, regardless of service. I mean, if you see Facebook as a distributor, or if you see like the local restaurant as a distributor, it doesn't really matter. It matters what fits your product and what fits your initial like group. But then, like, what he brought to my attention was that when you assess those partnerships, it's important to also keep the the idea of needs or archetypes or whatever,
Mm.
model you need, disc, or analyzing the personality of the person you're working with, because then you will be able to position yourself in a place where you can choose your partners rather
Mm.
than having to be forced to perhaps use partners that are damaging to your long-term brand. Either
Yeah.
way, that was the rabbit hole I went down into when you
Yeah.
raised the topic. So
But
let's
but,
just
but that is also an interesting rabbit hole, because again, it's about saying sometimes there's this Kahneman thinking about thinking fast and thinking slow, right?
exactly.
And very
Yeah.
often our brains get lazy, and if somebody tells us, well, this is the alternative to that, then it's like, well, cool, then I don't have to do all the processing, then I don't have to consider it, I can just pick that. And
Yeah.
it's such a good appeal to the lazy man brain, to be able to tap into that, and that goes for channels or partners or anything, because it's like, who does everybody else partner with? uh,
Yeah.
what is best practice?
Exactly.
Is
And
best
when is
practice,
best practice useful?
yeah, when is best practice actually best practice for you?
Yeah, exactly. That, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think a lot of it ties back to well, decision making,
Yeah.
and then it's but the interesting thing is that it's stepping up and talking about being an alternative to something. You kind of short circuit the decision process, right?
How do you mean?
So we are. I pre-tuned this decision for you. You just have to
Yeah.
swallow it now, son.
Yeah. One of my friends posted something about like we should not trust the expert or something like that,
Hmm.
and I think it's on the same topic, and I think it's interesting to sort of like unbox that a little bit, just about with those recommendations that come. You mentioned something beforehand here that, like, if you skip the process and just trust the advice, then that might constitute the problem for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're following somebody else's logic. I
Yeah.
did a presentation. There was a conversion boost event in Copenhagen, and on the evening before, I did a presentation on what happens after Google Optimize. So it's called the
Yeah.
day after Google Optimize. And in relation to that, I kind of tried to vocalize, well, for me first at least, the dimensions of this decision process, how many elements it really had to take into account. And
Yeah.
and the interesting thing was that it was a lot of thinking processes around uh, business, people, and processes, and the conclusion was the tool. Very often we start the wrong way around. We start, okay, is this tool a good fit?
Yeah.
But a good fit to what? If we haven't done the process and kind of decided what is the tool supposed to do?
Yeah. I'm waving back, Eric.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I know that the whole but I mean there is a built-in challenge with that, or I'm gonna say problem, and it's, I guess it's built on the idea that we are lazy. I don't necessarily agree with it, that people are lazy, but we care about the things we care about, and
Hmm.
not all things are necessarily things we care about because we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So we choose to care about some things more than other, and it's also like when you look at the research around how easily manipulated you are by, or how easily influenced you are by social media news and things like that,
Hmm.
it builds on that as well. If you care about a topic, then you're less likely to be influenced on that topic than if you
Yeah.
care little about the topic, which makes perfect sense. So how do we? But how do we do? Is this like going back to the idea that we have to become more compelling and interesting in like explaining why the process is important, or is it a matter of just like changing the way we work, or what are your thoughts on that?
I, I think it's for me, it kind of ties into prioritizing, right? The fine art of not giving a fuck. Basically, the book is not about not giving a fuck, but it's about deciding what you give a fuck about.
Yeah.
Right. So going in and prioritizing, you cannot give a fuck about everything. That's a lot of
No.
cussing in this session.
Yeah, this will be completely demoted. It will not show up on YouTube.
So I will try to not reference a book with that
Fine.
type of name. But the idea is still the same, going in and having a priority and saying, how important is this decision? Because if choosing a tool is important, then we need to invest time in it. If this is critical for the business, then we need to give it the time it takes. And I think the lazy thing is really, it's not the person, it's kind of the science that says the brain will try to avoid spending energy on things. So if it has if it can form an easy opinion, if it can make you do standard things, then it will do that, because then it's like it's the most powerful energy saving function we have anywhere, is the brain just shutting it down.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah.
No, and I think that might be a key into it, because when we run workshops and things like that, we're always interested in finding, what are the doors that we can open for people where they say, go, oh, wait a minute, and I think that like having this question about like how important the decision is and finding ways in which to open that door might actually be the key, because then we don't have to actually tell people why this is important, but they get to recognize it themselves. And so with regards to what we're talking about now in terms of alternatives to, optimize Google Analytics, things like that, what do you think? Like, we say business as a word, but business as a word is also quite like vast. What are we talking about? Is it like survival? Like what type of problems do you meet that are concrete around this topic?
So I think the first question for me, the first dimension that I see that is there that we need to look into is the commercial aspect. Saying, okay, if we stop seeing the tool as something that is serviceable, but we see it as an investment, what is it supposed to do for the business? What business problem is it solving? What value is it supposed to add to the equation of us running a business? So it's because analytics, sure, it's table stakes. Maybe for some businesses it doesn't make sense because they have like a really few visitors and a separated process. So it might not make sense from a purely business perspective, saying the cost of tracking does not provide you, you cannot get a positive return on that because it's just random facts on your website that is tied to other behavior. So that might be completely irrelevant for the business. So having this idea about looking into the business from that perspective. So what do we want to achieve with the thing that we're trying to decide about, right? Are there any commercial requirements? So for instance, the example I gave before in relations to the e-com website.
Yeah.
What are the basic things are there anything that we absolutely need for the business in relation to this?
Yeah.
And that goes into just the business side of things. We haven't talked about any tools. We just talked about how can we improve the business, right? So it helps really setting up a level of commercial requirements. So that's what I see when I say business. It's not the entire business, because other dimensions will cover other aspects. But does this make sense?
Absolutely, it's scary how this maps with the conversation I had yesterday. But yeah. So one thing I want to pick on here is like, so let's say that I am a decision maker, but I'm not interested in the business. What because I mean, I've been talking to people who work with like agile product. I'm having Mia on next week. We're going to talk about product development on like on agile principles, and or like running organizations in an agile way. And one of the things that they actually managed to do when you convert your organization into working more from an agile perspective is that you manage to get the teams working for your business side of things. But in most organizations, large organizations that I've worked with, people work from their budget side of things. So where regardless, or from their safety, like scare kind of like regardless if it's IT, legal, marketing, but the needs is constructed around their role so much that their main priority and focus becomes maintaining the sort of the regular thoughts around that role rather than looking at the business or the problem is a marketing problem or a legal problem or a IT problem. It's not a business problem or an organization or visionary or purpose problem. Have you met?
I love this because this is actually part of the things that I've been using this question so many times when I've been talking to analysts. I've been saying, okay, so why does anybody hire you? Why did anybody hire you? Or you as a consultant, Jesper, or me? Why do they hire us? Why do we hire somebody? Why does anybody hire anybody? They hire somebody because they think the business will be better with them in it.
Yeah.
And then we get lost and we focus on function and not purpose.
Yeah.
So I usually tease people by saying, okay, cool. So the first thing you should do when you get into work in the morning is when you sit down and saying, okay, cool, what can I do for the business today?
Yeah.
And when you leave, when you go out the door, saying, okay, cool.
Did I do that?
What did I do for the business today? Did I make any difference? Did I change anything? Because otherwise it just becomes bureaucracy, right? You're just going through processes to go through processes. And I think it ties into a lot of the stuff that you've been talking about in like a growth mindset as well. Saying, how can you have a growth mindset if you don't think about growth?
Yeah. No, that's impossible. I mean, and to see that your role is actually participating or is actually contributing to the overall success of the company. And I think that sometimes when even in small organizations, we don't spend enough time at recognizing how a small contribution, like that, the butterfly effect actually has an effect.
Yeah.
One of the greatest advice that is also a recipe for burnout that an old CEO said to me was that okay, Jesper, or he said it in a big setting, so he didn't say Jesper. So like what he said was like, so everyone in here, the thing that you think that you should do tomorrow, do it today instead, and we will grow faster. And I've adopted that in my mindset, and and then I realized that there is huge implications and problems with that saying, because the people who take it to heart, they will not just do the one thing today, but they will do 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and then they will start getting stressed, and then the stress leads to problems. But I think that it's one of those things, like the way he meant it when he said that the things that you do that you think that you're going to do tomorrow, do them today instead. I think that needs to live with everyone in the organization, because it sort of feeds into the idea that I am contributing to the growth and success of this business, and I want that to happen.
Yeah.
And with that, you go into engagement theory and why we do what we do and purpose and blah, 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 blah. But, in the end, I have to feel both that I'm contributing and that I want to contribute in order for that to happen.
And in a lot of cases, it also goes into the entire organization as such, in the sense that I'll loop it back to because I've been doing a lot of thinking in relation also on digital maturity. I have a right now I have a big aversion against static models because I feel that static maturity models is actually a problem because it's a fixed scale for a moving target, right?
Yeah.
So over the last years, what I've been thinking is saying when it comes to digital maturity, and it ties to this as well, is that, well, in a lot of sense, the digital evolution and what happens in this space or business in general can be seen kind of like the universe expanding, right? So there's so much things going on all the time. So you have this growth that is continuous. So digital maturity is not about checking off lists, but it's actually your business momentum, your development momentum. Are you expanding at a slower or faster rate than the universe?
Yes.
Because if you're expanding at a slower rate, then you're getting left behind. If you're expanding faster, then you're ahead of the market. So you have this. So because it's expanding, how do we actually tap into that? And then looping back to your talk, I had a customer at one point I was talking to, and it was the CEO. I met him at a conference. He was the most enthusiastic and with the highest momentum ever. He just wanted to go out there and rock the world. So he was moving at 200 kilometers an hour, 2,000. And behind him was a management level that I also talked to. They were moving, well, if he was moving 200, they were moving at 120. Still good, and then the next level was moving at 50, but all the core staff in the organization, they were still in the parking lot with the handbrakes drawn. So what was happening to that organization was basically that the momentum in the top was tearing the organization apart because they didn't have everybody along for the journey. So my reply to him, and it actually stopped the project from going forward at that point, saying he shouldn't do another project in relations to growth. He needed to go back and pick up his people.
Yeah, and I mean that's that's sort of the problem with having a visionary as the top, and not the processor, because even though the processing might be a little bit more boring and less exciting, or that excitement, it's like I don't know. I think we're not going too far off track, because it's like what builds into actually, having a reason as to why to listen or why to prioritize a choice of some sort. So
but actually, I can loop it back in, because the second dimension of my thing that I think is critical if we want to make decisions on something, it's about the people. So it's about saying it's about resources to run. Now I'm thinking a lot about tools or functions, right? So if we take analytics, saying cool, so what resources do we have in the organization that can actually do this? Can we train people? Can we acquire people? How do we upskill people? I think in my world, one of the reasons why Adobe has not been as successful as it could have been is because it's lacking people. There's not enough people who know the platform. It's way too difficult to hire. There's too few consultancies that specialize in it. And if you're an organization that goes in the Adobe direction, then suddenly the people you train get headhunted, or they go out and become consultants. Right? So you have this dimension around people saying, what is the infrastructure for support in this area? Sure, I can go out and I can find you an amazing platform that they only support in Mexico. Would you be interested in that?
Yeah.
It has to be a damn fine platform, right? So people play a massive part in relations to this entire thing. So it's about the internal resources, the education and recruitment, but also, and I think this, from my part, this is one of the places where Google has been exceptionally clever in building something around the support and community. You have people building businesses that are basically just support for somebody else's platform, right? CMOs, online services, Julius, Analytics Mania, having online training platforms and doing support on this, the entire Measure School universe. You have all these people that are building and sharing knowledge and aggregating for free.
Yeah.
So, but where do you find that for some of the other platforms? Where do you find the energy and the visionaries to help your team grow for free?
Yeah.
So I see that as an important dimension. So once you have the business in place, saying, "Cool, this is the right business goal," but what do we actually have to lift here? And what do we need to move forward?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard the story, but back in the days, and it might be a wonderful just analytics anecdote, but British Airways went out and they went through a long process, and then they acquired, I can't remember what analytics tool, but a big enterprise platform. And they signed up the deal, and for 2 years they couldn't hire anybody to run it.
No.
So basically, for 2 years they were paying for the license, but they had no people to use the platform.
Not very uncommon.
No, exactly. So it's kind of saying that's a really important dimension as well.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of it. I see it growing, and I see Pivik as some of the people that are moving. But the problem is that Google has the benefit is for Google is that they've had so many years in building a community around this and a culture.
For sure. And I mean, but in some aspect, that's also what Site Catalyst had as well, you know, and you know, when we were all in the domains of what is now the Adobe products, which was not the Adobe products back then. But I mean, I think that there is something to that. But but it also builds on my personality. I like to look into new things and see how I can use them. But when I find something that I like feel is like useful to people, I tend to wanna in terms of digital stuff, marketing and product building and stuff. I tend to wanna be that what I call the ones who start creating stuff around it. I know you do too. I mean, you're like a known contributor to conferences and to the LinkedIn and to a lot of other. You're like a teacher and things like that as well. So you must have a part of that in you too. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think for my part, if I boil myself down, I think I'm a teacher first.
Yeah,
and probably why I'm so get out there that much. I see this need to share, but you can only evangelize so much alone.
Yeah. So what you're saying is not that this should be like a determinant but it should be a part of the decision making process. You know, like if you do this alone, you gotta make sure that you know you're doing it alone.
I'm saying, classic situation. Lego, kind of famous company, had their analytics team sitting in Billund, in the middle of nowhere, Denmark. Right, attracting people to Billund has not been easy. So despite everything, and now they've kind of opened the team and letting them work from other places as well, right? But having the idea that people should work out of Billund was a major factor here in this. And if they had not saying that, but if they had chosen another platform, so they run Adobe, right? So you combine, then it has to be a really really sexy brand to attract people to live in the middle of nowhere, Jutland.
To attract the few people to live in like that are good enough.
Highly skilled people, and in a lot of cases, I think now they're all foreigners. So you have to attract people coming from outside of Denmark to go to Denmark and to live, well, not in the middle of nowhere, but centrally in Jutland, where there is not a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. All right. I know there are 4 of these. What's the third?
The third one is actually, then it becomes more technical, but it's about the platform. So what is the platform specific things that you might have in challenge? So that this is some of the functionalities, but it's also and now we're talking tech, right? But it's integrations. One of the curses that I see when I look back is that we have too many silos of data. So,
Yeah.
what do we need to integrate to?
Yeah.
Right. So having the integration as something that is part of the decision process, saying this is really a strong part of something being an alternative. Can I use it in other places than the one place that I'm buying it for?
Yeah.
Because that is where you start increasing the value of the platform and the value of the data, because you break out of the limitations that is just this one tool. So if the tool is just this is when I've been kidding people saying so when you go into an organization and you do an audit of their tech stack, and what you find out is that it's like they have seven Swiss Army knives, technically almost identical Swiss Army knives, but one is open to the knife, and one is open to the corkscrew, and one is open to the scissor. But
Yeah.
they're using, basically they could use just the one platform for everything, but they have seven platforms to cover seven dimensions.
Yeah.
So
Seven procurement processes.
exactly, and seven licenses,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And seven training skill sets and seven teams that works on different dimensions, where you could have one big team working with an integration. But
Yeah.
because you have this linearity when you go out and look at function, saying, cool, what is this supposed to do? Oh, this is supposed to be our email marketing platform. Then you
Yeah.
go out and you look for an email marketing platform outside.
Yeah.
But the first place you should actually look at saying, do we have something in-house that actually already could work as an email marketing platform as well? And is that good enough?
Yeah.
And you can recognize this. I can hear it in your sigh.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's also, I mean, and going back to your initial remarks about, trusting the expert as well, and also why it mirrors the conversation I had yesterday, is that whenever a group of people come into an organization, like if I get hired for doing something, I need to do something, and I mean, when I look back at my track record and what I've done and things like that in the industry, I know I've made a dent and I am proud of what I've done, but very, 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 very little of what I've done is still visible and still exists for the plain eye, and so if I want to make a mark, if I want to show that I've been somewhere, I know that it's a lot easier to buy something that exists, or make something that is visible, visually, appealing to someone. So it's much easier proving that you've done something if your delivery is content, or a website, or a building, or a new packaging, or something that is actually tangible that you can hold and see. But when you've done a really, really cool implementation of like dynamic landing pages and UTM tracking, mapping them in a new way that is really simple, when they do an update to their website, all of that is going to be gone, because I'm not going to be there, and no one is going to be caretaker of that until they realize that that dashboard isn't working anymore. So yeah.
But it goes a bit back to the people and the business purpose as well. I actually I did a presentation on where I talked about everybody wants to work on the silver bullet, but nobody wants to be the data janitor. But in reality, it's the data janitor that makes sure that there's continuity in the value, right? That we actually get business value out of things that, and exactly, the campaign tracking was one of the things I used as an example, saying, why does most website have analytics? They have it for to measuring the marketing, but who's responsible in the organization for campaign tracking? And the answer is, well, Steen, we all are. And okay, but then why does it suck? Because I think it's actually one of the biggest problems for most organizations is that their campaign tracking is not done well enough. It doesn't fulfill the potential. And like you said, then somebody comes in and set it up, and then they leave, and then everything breaks down again.
Yeah.
So who gets fired when the campaigns are not tracked? So
Yeah.
it's placing that responsibility, and nobody wants to. And it's with responsibility. Nobody wants to point out that there's a problem in the organization, saying, because what happens? Hey, our campaign tracking is broken. Then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you volunteer to fix it. Good, go fix it.
And I used to have zero, zip, none, appreciation for that perspective, like that, because I used to think like, so why don't you, or why aren't you more rational in your decision making? But
Yeah.
like being employed for a year, like being employed in a company for a full year that was growing at the pace that company was growing, I felt weird in my belly, going to work. I had constant, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so weird that this is happening to me, And I think that it is, I mean, as a consultant, I can come in, we can do changes, we can work, we can, be productive and successful and blah, blah, blah. But it's on another dimension than people who have to stay there when we're gone, because we are a cost. We are a ticking cost in the budget. So we're not there for the social parties, or for the fika, or for, we're not there to do that.
Yeah.
But if you're there to do that as well, if the expectations on you is that you should also socialize and have some kind of social clout with your colleagues, then you don't want to be you don't want to be the one who seems as though you're not doing your job,
Yeah.
because you haven't shown anything,
Yeah.
But you don't recognize that, or I didn't recognize that some things that you do takes so much time before they show anything, whilst other roles can produce things that show up all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fallacy, in our brain that makes us think or appreciate those things that are visible quickly. And of course it is, it's to go back to Kahneman as well, it is we are like that, but it's something that we should appreciate in terms of recognizing the need to have something to show.
At
the same time as you're doing, we used to call it monkey dancing when we did the Christmas tree, and we did the useful stuff, because we knew that if we don't do the Christmas tree, people won't get hired, or we will not remain in their position, so we will lose the contract. So we have to do the Christmas tree in order to get to do the useful stuff.
Yeah, but I think it's where the humanity side of things actually come in and challenges the rationale that should be business, right? Because it's the same thing saying, so how many organizations have you been in that calls themselves data-driven, where somebody senior can still come in and say, okay, cool, I need a report on how good the campaign we did last month was that I invested in.
And
but you start up with confirmation bias that it was a good campaign. And the person, if you give the person a report saying, well, it was the worst campaign we ever did.
Yeah.
Then we're like, oh, I can't show this to the board. Make me another report.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Then it's not the data group, then it's like the data confirmation organization. So find the biggest number and put it on the slide.
Yes.
And that might fit a purpose as well. If you're trying to change an organization in one or another direction, it might be useful to do that. But if you consider the internal organization as one of your key interest target groups, then that might be something that you have to do. but it's not going to move the needle in terms of your business in the end, or maybe in the end in the long term, but you have to do other things before that. We actually have a comment here from Instructional Design on YouTube. We say we have so much different providers because every provider do one good thing at one spot of our business system. We can't replace and everyone, and I think that can be true too, but that means that you are using things that are useful to you.
Yeah.
So you've gone through the process of the first 3 steps here to like, does this actually provide to our business? Are we willing to take the risk of of lacking a support system?
Yeah.
And does it integrate? No, it does not integrate, but it brings us value anyhow. And
Yeah.
I think that is a very, very rational way of thinking about things. I assume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, instructional design. You can, I mean, if it is so that there would be one tool to rule them all, would you then switch if the finance would motivate it? That's a question back to you. What are your thoughts on this, Sten? Am I
So from my perspective, I think it's I'm not saying that everything should be switched into one platform. I'm saying we need to be aware of the choices and making the choices actively. And in this case, if they have decided that no one can be replaced, well, then it's the optimal system for them. So from that perspective, it's really being aware about the choices that we have to make along the way to make the decision, and how different factors contribute. But also saying, it might be saying, cool, this way we have 20 providers and they're all the best of breed, but what are we losing out to lack of synergy?
Yeah.
Right, because it's also, even though because you don't get any saving because you have to handle 10 contractors, you don't get any benefits in you get 7 licenses, you get 7 cost. So even if they're running at the best, would it actually be saying, cool, but if we go for the second best option everywhere, then we can actually do it with 2 providers, and then we get much more momentum. So
yeah.
Does it make sense?
That is an interesting interesting perspective. But do we bring it in, like, when do we take our time? How do we organize ourselves to take that time? It's going back. Yeah, sorry.
To make the decision, or
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, because one of the things here as well is that going back to what we said in the beginning about caring, I need to care about this decision in order
Yeah.
to give it that time to think that, okay, maybe the second best option is actually the more valuable option, because I get to integrate it with other services, and therefore the end product will be more valuable, although I don't get the eye candy of ChatGPT.
Yeah, and you can say one of the last thing in relation to the platforms is actually, and this goes for other partners as well. It's the the development momentum. Is this platform changing or growing? Because it might be saying, we have a lot of customers who still use Google Optimize. Google Optimize hasn't changed anything and hasn't been updated in 2 years or something.
No.
So maybe it was the optimal choice when we chose it, but if it doesn't change, then it will stop being the optimal choice. So
or yeah, exactly. Or if you changed and it did not. If you were the CEO and Optimize was the organization. Then all right.
Cool.
Number four.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So TikTok and everything. So number 4 is actually it's a fun one, because it's actually where I put risk. So I call continuity. What is the likelihood of this platform continuing? So I see you go out there and you see something, somebody is saying, we are the alternative to this. And then you look into the business and say, okay, cool, it's 2 guys running this platform as a side hustle. are they really something that I will risk building my business on? Because there is a significant risk adding to the process in relation to this, that this product will no longer be there in a couple of years. So the
Yeah.
more I build on something, is the foundation of this alternative product solid?
Yeah.
So that's one dimension, and the other dimension, and this is actually the place where I put in compliance, saying, well, what is the balancing we need to do between compliance and commercial interest?
Yeah.
Because okay, so with Google Analytics, this is the thinking where it came from, saying in reality the compliance issue is not the first issue. The first issue is a business issue, and then at the end you can decide whether saying how critical for our business is this. You have a lot of customers in a very competitive market. If they go in and kill all data and become 100% compliant, they
Yeah.
would most likely get wiped out by the competition who were balancing on the edge or not pushing that agenda at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this continuity interest saying, is there a long-term future for this? What is the other cost related to this? Does that make sense? Do we
Very
have
much so.
a person championing this in the organization?
Yeah. And it also builds a little bit on what instructional design followed up with, like 1, 2 to rule them all, switch the question. It depends a lot on a lot of factors. Finance is not the main. Financial benefit in the short term can be disaster in the long term. I would use pilot micro project as a way to sort of.
Absolutely. So you can say for us in most cases we are actually recommended people to when it comes to CDPs, right? We recommend people to build their own, not buy one, because buying one it's locking your business into somebody else's way of thinking, where the return will not necessarily come easy. So owning your own data and then adding other platforms on top, depending on what is most tactical for your situation. And that is it's not a saving exercise, it's a outcome exercise.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the point as well to the answer before, saying this is never, you can't win by saving the most money, right?
No.
Winning comes with investing. You can only shave so much fat off the bones until you die from cold.
You're just dropping sound bites now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna try. I promised myself that this format would never be about making bullets and concluding remarks. But I think that it's actually kind of interesting to do that in terms of what we've been talking about today, because it's a bit on point and in the tangent at the same time. So so I think that let me just your computer upload file. I'm just going to do one thing here.
You're breaking Jesper's rule number 1.
Yeah, I'm breaking my rules, but I think that is sort of what I should be doing.
That is good. So always be willing to fuck with the format, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh wait, I can't do that. I need to do this. Either way, yeah. Actually, let me do that. Share screen, window, entire screen. Yes, let's do that. So I mean, this is a little bit summarizing what you've been proposing here. I just need to switch this one. How does that look? Is it visible on screen?
Yes. Change the first one to commercial thinking. I think commercial thinking is much more precise, because that is what do we want to achieve with the dimension? People scarcity of capacity. Yeah. The platform, does it integrate with what you use? And also, does it have the functionality that we need? Right?
Yeah.
So it can be the saying it, what functionality does the platform require for us to deliver on our business goals?
Yeah.
And continuity and risk, absolutely.
Does it meet in terms of
Because I think if you do these exercises, right, or do these
yeah,
4 dimensions, and then you deliver it to a vendor saying this is what it's supposed to do,
yeah,
then suddenly you get something where you're not talking about tech specs or anything. You're actually talking about the purpose of the investment.
yeah,
And then it's up to, can your platform do this for us?
yeah. I feel a canvas workshop coming out of this one. you know, like finding like commercial thinking. I mean, it builds on the whole like business model canvas, like
Hmm.
answering the question I always ask about, like, why do we grow? Why do we
Yeah,
grow? Why do we grow? Why do we grow? And then people and scarcity. If you know about the growth marketing canvas, I think it's called, where they have like capacity on one side, and then they have needs on the other side. So you map your capacity with the needs thing.
hmm.
Building on your capacity there, having as much capacity as possible, you will be
Yeah,
able to satisfy more needs in people looking at you. The platform uh, integration. I sort of I I I sort of don't do what I am supposed to do. I'm a little bit more like, I mean, even if there is a platform that integrates everything, that has a learning curve, you know, and
hmm.
so I much rather do what our friend on YouTube was saying, to just test new tools. And if a new
Yeah,
tool does one task better than an old tool, I'll just replace the old tool to do
hmm.
that one thing, rather than to find that optimal solution. Even though I know that I might both be financially more viable and like long term more viable to people.
Hmm.
But I think it's really something that is worth digging into and worth considering.
Yeah,
Especially in relation to your dimension in the dimension, which was that maybe the second best option is better in total if you get like a unified, if you manage to integrate that with something else, maybe
hmm.
the outcome in terms of your commercial thinking there, or in terms of dimension one,
Yeah,
will be better, right? So your output becomes better, although you don't solve that one task the best way.
yeah.
Maybe the net is higher. And then
But it's,
continuity and risk, I think, is something that we bypass too often.
yeah,
Even if we look at, I mean, people built their Facebook pages without prompting people to leave an email address. And
yeah,
one of my pet peeves these years have been to, like, the only way you own your customer relationship is by owning their key identifier, and
yeah,
it's been email, it's now a mobile phone number. If you own the mobile phone number of someone, you own that customer relationship. If you
yeah,
own the email of someone, you own a little bit of that customer. You have at least proprietary rights to contact
yeah,
them. but
yeah,
but if you have a Facebook page or a TikTok page or anything like that, you don't, because when the platform goes, you go. When the
yeah.
platform changed the rules, they are changed for you. You're not in charge of your customer relationship.
And you can see that in the sense that for me, I spent a lot of time at one point building LinkedIn groups.
Yeah,
And LinkedIn groups was really good in the beginning because you actually got people's emails and you could send group emails to the members of the group, and it was really
yeah,
fine. And now it's like, yeah, if you post something in the group, we might show it to the members, and otherwise they will have to go into the group to get the message. So it's very social media, but the return on the activity has just fallen through the floor because it's LinkedIn group is not anything I would recommend you to do with well not on a big scale. It's not a strategic move, right? There might be something short term in it, but and the same with Facebook and so on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do we know what the best or what when something is an alternative to something else? That's kind of looping back to the original question. For me, it's about finding out what it's supposed to be an alternative to, defining
Yeah.
that in the initial thinking. Um, does that make sense? So actually saying because otherwise we end up just looking at one dimension, like in the Google Analytics space, saying, well, this platform is compliant and this platform is not compliant. So this is an alternative to the first one, and it is, but only on one dimension.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You look very thoughtful.
No, so you I mean, what you're saying is like today maybe if even it's number three that we tend to go to. We just have a look at platform.
Yeah,
Not even if not even if it integrates. Like, is this platform comparable with the functionality in our old one?
yeah,
Whilst the process of this should really start with the business thinking and then go through like, how can I support this with my capacity? How can I build my
yeah,
capacity based on this tool? How can I become more productive in essence?
yeah.
Then turning to, does the tool do what I want it to do?
Yeah,
Well,
and does it
finally look.
provide any added value that can actually tie into other stuff?
Yeah,
So besides being really the best tool here, does it
yeah.
have any secondary values?
Yeah. And it's, I mean, in terms of like, this mirrors the process that I go through in terms of SEO as well, where we look at like, what are the sort of keywords or audiences that are most likely to drive our business. You know,
Hmm.
who can we offer something that is of value to them?
Yeah,
Um, and then seeing like, how do we prioritize those target groups in relation to each other? Like, how big are they? And so where can we essentially earn the most, like, from our
hmm.
investment? Then we have a look at, okay, so what should we do here? Should we build? Should we links? Should we content? Should we, what should we do in order to target them? And then we need to that's the cost function of things. And then we need to know like, how lasting is this? So
Hmm.
anything from the Google Trends data to the My Telescope data, to just get an idea of whether or not the things that people are searching for is a growing trend and is likely
Yeah,
to grow over time, and we should position ourselves there, or if it's something that is
that
a
has peaked.
firecracker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, and then this is just this is the kind of thing I just wanted to throw into the equation when people talk about making decisions, right? That
Yeah.
decisions are hard, and especially business decision, because it's not just about the platform or what it's supposed to execute on the other side. It's also, what are our capabilities? Can we support it in the long run?
Yeah.
So yeah. Everybody talks about people, processes, and technology, and all people ever talk about are technology,
Yeah.
right? So we need to be more focused on the people and processes and outcomes. What is this the side outcome of this actually, which should be the little lovely circle, the commercial purpose, on overlapping all these three things.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
So let's start making some difficult choices.
Yeah. Let's start
Man,
making some better choices.
yeah, exactly. Better choices that are more informed.
Yeah.
Man, thanks a lot. It's 8:58. I'm very happy that you poked me and that we managed to have this conversation. I think it should go into it's just like, I get always stuck on the idea, how do we actually get people to care in the
Yeah.
beginning? How do we actually solve for Y? If this was X, how do we solve for Y? How do we get people to come and join in?
Yeah.
There are interesting like tactical ways of doing that, but I would just want to find a way where you could genuinely, without playing tricks, get people to care about these things, to want to go to work for the reasons that they want to go there, and they want to be there, and they want to provide for that context.
But it's a really a lovely point in the sense that of all these things we talk about, if you can have the technology, you can have the processes, but if the people are not there,
No,
then they don't do anything.
all
Right?
else.
Yeah. So things start with the people. It's a culture thing, and then we can add processes and technology to increase the value of that.
Yeah. Guys, those of you who were with us for the full duration of this hour, we applaud you. This was an us time for me and Steen, but I mean, I like this, and this is the purpose of this format. Thanks a lot for joining, and I'm gonna bring you back when we have our holistic talk on analytics in a few. I think we're gonna do it in the early fall, because we have like full funnel analytics, from demand generation to evaluating whether or not different. So I'm going to bring in a few people to have a chat about that.
Okay, you just say when, so I will be there. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Hola,
Cheers.
hola. Bye.